talking with Dr. Gowledge, he said he just did 405 squat for the first time in a while.
Nice.
And then he also did a 275 squat. What's the one where you hug it like this?
Front squat or Zercher?
Zercher, that one. 275. Which I have no concept. I assume that's pretty good. More than I can do. However, do you see any benefit? So I guess why did they land on the lower bar back squat? But then do you see any other benefit in other type of squats? Supplement perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest answer of like why the low bar back squat versus a front squat or a high bar squat is mainly you have to think about what is the goal. And if the goal is basic physical strength, if the goal is to get as strong as possible, then you want to use most muscle mass over largest range of motion. So if you do some like physics and anatomy study, if you put the bar lower on the back in order to not fall over, because like a large load on your back that weighs more than your body mass, you have to keep it over the middle of the foot because that's your balance point. So if you put the bar lower on the back as you bend at the waist, hinge at the waist, whatever you want to say, and you bend your knees like that, the bar can't travel like way up front over your toes or way back over your heel, or you'll collapse if the load is heavy, right? So it has to go over the middle of the foot. So if the bar's got to travel in the middle of the foot, the direction of gravity straight down, if you put the bar lower on the back, then your back angle gets more horizontal. And this differs from person to person based on torso length versus femur length, et cetera. But if the bar's low on your back, then you have to lean over and sit your hips back. When you sit your hips back, you load more of the hips or, the posterior chain than you would if the bar was high on your back. So you have more muscle mass in the hamstrings, glutes, adductors, all the quads, all that muscle mass gets loaded more if the bar's low on the back, because in order to obey the laws of gravity, you have to sit your hips back and lean over. So you load more of yourself where there is more muscle mass. So I'm not like, hey, anyone that high bar squats is stupid. I'm not anyone that front squats is stupid. But like for the general strength trainee whose goal is to increase force production and overall strength, which is for most people what we're after, at least the people I work with. I don't work with a lot of powerlifters. I don't work with a lot of Olympic weightlifters. I don't work with a lot of physique people. I work with people that are like, I'm getting older, I need to stay strong. So the low bar back squat is the best answer to train the most of yourself at once. Do I think there's a need or a reason to ever supplement and do other? Sure. And I would put it into a couple of camps. One, if you do get strong, like the guy you're talking about, it's probably, what does he weigh, 200 pounds?
Who, Dr. G?
Yeah.
He's probably, 210, 220.
Whatever, yeah. So he's like 200. He's a fully grown male. He's squatting double his body weight. Like his body probably can't tolerate that multiple or 3 to 4 times a week. He can't be squatting, some people can't, but like the average person, if they get strong, like squatting double body weight is strong, like you probably can't do that 3 times a week. So on some days you're going to have to do a lighter load. You still want to get under the bar. You still want to provide a systemic stress, but you can't, be all out, to the wall every single time. So therefore you can do a percentage squat. Hey, on Monday I squat, 3 sets of 5, really heavy. And then on Wednesday I squat 80% of that because I'm still stressed from that, but I want to get into the gym. And the reason that squat on Wednesday is still difficult is because I'm not fully recovered from the one on Monday and I can't go up and load yet. So I'm going to squat a little bit lighter. And then Friday I go heavy. Or you could do a variation squat. And what the variation squat does is it loads less muscle mass. So therefore you can still make the effort hard by using less of yourself. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm low bar squatting, in Strength Coach we just call it squat, but if I'm low bar squatting Monday heavy, then on Wednesday I could do a front squat. And the front squat I could still take heavy for that lift to where I'm working very hard and, rep 5 or let's say do set to 8 or whatever the case is a super big strain, but the load is much different because I'm using less of me. So I would do 395, in a low bar squat on Monday, and on Wednesday I'm front squatting 275, right? So it's less total stress, but the requirement is still high. So the first thing would be, hey, to apply less stress, I could use a variation. The second one would be just like lifters that get bored. People get bored. I don't get bored because I think it works the most. So my workouts are very they are boring, but they don't make me bored because I know it works. But some people are just hey, I'm squatting 3 sets for 5 reps all the time, been doing it for 3 years. So you can throw in front squat, a high bar squat, a safety squat bar. You could throw in something so there's some variation. So the second one would just be some type of variation. And the third reason that I might have people do things besides the low bar back squat is if they are going to compete, like say in Olympic weightlifting. I still think an Olympic weightlifter is better if he is stronger, right? So if he's competing in the clean and jerk and the snatch, and he has a 400-pound squat versus a 300-pound squat, he's going to be better with the 400-pound squat. But those other lifts do require practice. So you should train the thing that you're going to do, in the sport if you've already gotten strong. So if a guy's going to do an Olympic weightlifting meet, do some really heavy front squats so that when you do a clean and maybe you're out of the groove or something's a little bit off and you catch it, you're used to straining out of that bottom position in a front squat. So, I think if they're gonna compete in that sport, it's worthwhile. So that would be the 3 reasons for what did I say? For load management, for variation, or because a sport that I'm doing. Other people have asked me about the Zercher squat. A lot of BJJ guys really like it because, I don't do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I guess, you're down, you're picking a guy up. And so it's a position that emulates it. I guess my gut with that would still be, hey, if you're just overall stronger, I think it's better with whatever sport you're doing. And I think for the BJJ guys, I'm not mad at them if they do a Zercher squat, but it's you never know the exact position you're going to end up being in and have to get out of. So I still think just general strength is better. I've messed around with the Zerchers. Zercher, I forget how you say it, but I don't think it's
tomato.
I'm not against it, but I wouldn't make it a training priority. What I don't like, you see this all the time, is people that are not very strong and won't commit to getting their strength up, and they just constantly want to do something different, or they see a guy with abs with a cool morning routine or whatever the sense is, and he's doing Zercher squats, therefore I need to do Zercher squats. I think that is a mistake. But I also think there's an element of, if you're strong, you can do whatever you want. But if you're trying to get stronger and you're doing these other things, it's not the best use of your time. Will you still get stronger? Yes. I mean, we just did 1,000-pound club, second attempt with, a bunch of the Marines across the battalion. All kind of guys came in. I'm like, hey, you can squat however you want. You can low bar, you can high bar. You got to break parallel, showed them what it is. And, I had a guy in there, high bar squatting with his pinkies around the edge of the bar, 495. And, what am I going to tell him? He's doing fine. Do I think if he put the bar lower on his back and trained it for a while so that he was used to it, right? If you do a brand new movement like the strength, you won't necessarily just be stronger, because you may have to, you're not used to balancing that way or whatever the case is. But do I think he'd be stronger? Yeah. But at the same time, he's obviously gotten very strong high bar squatting. He also got red lighted twice because he's not used to squatting to depth. And but whatever. So that's what I think about it.